Hello guys and welcome to another episode of I Bought a Watch. Sorry guys that it's been so long. I've been really busy with Christmas and such, but I'm back now and hopefully I can get into a better review schedule. It feels a bit weird. It has been 2 weeks since I've released a video and that is just about the longest time that I've ever had while I've been on YouTube from recording a video. So it is a bit peculiar. Now, hopefully this is coming to you at New Year's Eve. I thought it would be a good time to release a video. So if you've got a couple of minutes to spare in the run up to midnight, here it is. If not, no worries. Happy New Year for 2021. Let's hope it's a better year. Now let's get into this review. Now I'm sure you've seen from the title of this video, this is the giveaway. To enter the giveaway, all you need to do is like this video, subscribe down below over here if you haven't already, and go follow me on Instagram. I will again leave a link to that in the description below. The basic structure of this review, I will go through the background, then some dimensions and specifications, primarily looking at the positives of the watch, and then I'm going to be talking about reasons not to buy this watch. And I'm going to make it a little bit different and compare it to this Retangula here. Now the watch I am reviewing, of course, is this Steel Dive. The Steel Dive ST1970, which is of course a homage of the Seiko Captain Willard. Now this is the watch that you guys voted on in my 1,000 subscriber giveaway poll, and so I got it in for review. And then of course after this video, if you guys like, subscribe, and actually leave a comment in the description below, then I will pick one of the lucky winners in a future video and give this one away. And I must say you guys have incredible taste because this is a really cool watch. Now, of course, a little bit of background. This, I called it the Captain Willard, and that is of course referring to Captain Willard in the film Apocalypse Now. Now, it's a great film and it's actually pretty historically accurate. See, soldiers fighting in Vietnam often opted for the Seikos as they were reliable and tough. And I must say, this one is built quite like a tank. Speaking of tank, let's go through some of the dimensions here. So the diameter here is 42 to 43 millimeters. It is slightly thicker, adds a fair few millimeters actually at those crown guards. The lug to lug is a good compact 47 millimeters, so it can actually wear on a variety of wrists. The lug width here is 20 millimeters and the thickness is 13 millimeters, and that does include that lovely piece of raised sapphire crystal. Now, speaking of the sapphire crystal, we have a sapphire crystal on this watch with a lovely bit of blue AR coating. Now that's really unusual to see on a watch at this price point. Speaking of the price point, I should probably mention, I picked this one up for £80. I will leave a link in the description, so if at any point you want to pick this watch up or you don't win it in the giveaway, I will leave a link in the description below. That will be an affiliate link, which basically means I get a little bit of commission and no extra cost to you guys. So going through all the dimensions, let's go over some of the specifications. So as I mentioned, it is a sapphire crystal with a lovely little bit of blue AR coating. The dial itself is a matte black dial with applied indices, with a split shield indice at the 12, thicker and elongated batten indices at the 6 and 9, and shorter batten indices at the remaining hour markers. There is a white contrasting date window at the 3 o'clock with an applied metallic frame. I opted for the sterile version as it seemed the more popular choice in the comments of which watch to pick. So there is no writing under the 12 o'clock. Above the 6 is automatic water resistance 200 meters with the 200 meters in an eye-catching red. The minute track is also printed on the extreme edge of that dial where it meets that color matched rehort. The rehort itself appears metallic. It does offer some reflections on close inspection, so perhaps they've applied a coating of some kind. The handset is a rather simplistic baton styled handset for the hour and minute hand with a nice long paddled seconds hand with that red dot complementing the red printing on the dial face. The finishing of the handset is a high polish, but unfortunately features some minor scratching at the tip of the minute hand and also some scratching at the pinion where the tools have clearly marked the handset as the hands were applied. The watch features C3 lume. This is great for the price and is only helped by the very large application areas on the handset and hour indices. A cool and special feature of this watch is it does have a lumed bezel, which has a nice contrasting blue, which really makes this one pop in low light conditions. Both have a very good lume span. The footage showing now should be sped up footage of a couple of minutes to give you a better idea. Moving on to the bezel, this is a ceramic bezel insert, which, like I said, has inlaid lume portions for the markers and Arabics. The triangle at the 12 is also lumed filled, giving a nice reference point in low light conditions. Another thing I like is because there's no lume pip, there is nothing to be knocked out and it's perfectly flat, so you have no danger of knocking a lume pip out. The bezel action itself is a 120 click unidirectional dive time bezel. It's quite a heavy bezel action, perhaps a little stiff at first, and there is a minute variation in resistance. It's particularly easier around here, but over time, this has equaled out, and to be honest, it's pretty incredible. The watch features very minute playback and lines up with the 12 o'clock perfectly. I've gone past. And I better put it back, otherwise people are going to be letting me know constantly in the comment section below. There we go. Now, the bezel itself has a lovely coin-edged grip. Moving on to the case, like the rest of the watch, this is 316L stainless steel. It has circular brushing on the top of the watch head and a high polish finishing on the edges. The high polish finishing meets these rather impressive integrated crown guards, meaning that crown is in very little danger of being knocked. The crown itself is screw down and unfortunately is not signed. I don't exactly know why it's unsigned, as most steel dives do have a signed crown. Perhaps someone in the comments below could fill me in. As I mentioned, it's screw down and pops out and gives you access to controlling the Seiko NH35 movement inside. Pretty simple movement. First position has hand winding. I'm not going to do it. Pull it out to first position, allows you to change the date. Pull it out to the second position, hacks the movement, so that means the second hand stops and allows you to set the time. Screwing back in the crown is very easy and it has a very nice threading. Moving on to the bracelet, we have solid end links and solid links on this bracelet. The bracelet is finished on the top with a brushed finish and a high polished edging on the sides. As you can see, the watch features the push pin link adjustment system, which is fairly secure. I'm not too fussed about it, but it does require you to have the correct tools to resize it. The bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the clasp. And I forgot to mention, it does feature female end links, which means that 47mm lug to lug is how it actually wears on wrist. So that's good for if you have a slightly smaller than average wrist. Moving on to the clasp, this is probably one of the weakest points of this watch. As you can see, it's a pressed clasp, but it does feature dual pushers and a safety latch, so it makes it incredibly secure. Probably one of the most secure watch clasps that I have on any of my dive watches, as it features that double layer of security. However, it is still a bit of a disappointment that it is pressed. The watch clasp features 3 levels of micro adjust and it is unsigned and finished in a all brushed finish. As we open the clasp, let's have a look at the case back. It's covered in fingerprints because it is a high polished, unsigned, sterile case back. It is screw down and the back of the head of the watch features a longitudinal brushing along the remaining portion. Now let's pop this one on the wrist. On the steel bracelet, you might have noticed it is not scratched at all. That's because I have been primarily wearing it on this rubber strap from Strapsco. I'll pop it on this strap in a bit, but if you win the giveaway, you will get it on this metal bracelet. And actually, it looks really good. It's a little bit chunky. It gives it that more militaristic look. As you can see, actually, I haven't been wearing this at all, but even still, it's managed to scratch a little bit. Gosh, it's so bright. It's managed to scratch a little bit there where the clasp is hitting the link on the bracelet. And I imagine we'll find it's also scratching on this side as well. Yeah, there's signs of first scratching where that is hitting the first link. But anyway, let's pop it on the rubber strap. Now, I did complain about this rubber strap being slightly thick, but it works brilliantly with this watch. So I'm going to pop off screen, swap the straps out. And actually, this gives me an excuse to pop it on outside. So here we are outside in my garden, and as you can see, it looks beautiful. That anti-reflective coating is really picking up, and I think this one pairs beautifully with a rubber strap. I mean, I've got to say, guys, this is a stunning watch. I'm actually kind of annoyed that I'm giving this one away. I might have to go and pick one of these up for myself because I've actually really fallen in love with this one. It is a stunning watch, and to whoever ends up winning this, count yourself a very lucky man or woman. Now, of course, that's not to say it's perfect, so let's go back inside and put it head to head against that Retangula turtle. I'll see you guys inside. Okay, here we are back inside, got them here side by side on the desk in front of me. So before I get into this, the first thing to mention is that they are different price points. So the Retangula here comes in at about £120 if my memory is correct, whereas the Steel Dive is £80. So straight off the bat, there is a difference in budgets. But that being said, there are still very comparable watches, not only in design, but it's interesting to take a look and think about what the extra £40 gets you. Because although this Retangula is not homaging the exact same model, Lugyu and some of its other subsidiaries like Chronos and even companies like San Martin do a Captain Willard Seiko homage. So I think this is a good benchmark to base a good comparison on. The first thing I noticed when I got the Steel Dive in comparison to the Retangula is the handset. So the handset on the Retangula has a dual finishing. So it has a longitudinal brushing along the hour and minute hand, and it also has a high polished beveled edge. Now, comparing this to the Steel Dive, if you look at the handset here, it is finished completely in a high polish and is incredibly two-dimensional, almost as if it has been cut out of a thin sheet of polished steel. Now, it is nice, but does look incredibly plain compared to the dual finishing on the Retangula. Next up, I want to talk about water resistance, and thankfully they have printed the water resistance on both the dials in bright red, so it's very easy to compare them. The Retangula has a stated 150 meters water resistance, whereas the Steel Dive has a little bit more impressive 200 meters water resistance. There is a little bit of difference in wording. The Retangula says waterproof, whereas the Steel Dive says water resistance. Now, read into that what you will. Both of these watches, I wouldn't really feel comfortable taking down to much more than 50 meters in an actual diving situation. It would be interesting. I don't have the apparatus to test these water resistance, but it would be interesting to see what the added 50 meters would accomplish, or whether it doesn't provide any extra protection at all. Next up, I want to talk about the crystals. Now, the crystal on the Retangula is perfectly flush with the bezel. Both these crystals are sapphire crystals and both feature a beveled edge. However, the beveled edge on the Steel Dive meets flush with the bezel, causing it to protrude ever so slightly. This is definitely not something that makes a massive difference. The only thing I will admit that having worn the Retangula far more often, because the crystal's beveled edge goes into the case, it leaves a line around the edge of the crystal where grit and dust can get caught, which can be kind of annoying, but thankfully it's got an incredibly strong water resistance, so running it out of the tap will get rid of any debris. Speaking about how crystals meet bezels, let's talk about the bezels themselves. So the first difference is the bezel material. So the Retangula has an aluminium bezel insert, whereas the Steel Dive has a ceramic bezel insert. Now, I imagine that the actual Lugyu branded Captain Willard homages will include a ceramic bezel insert. So again, this is kind of a matter of preference. I spoke about it in my review of the Retangula about how I'm looking forward to see this aluminium bezel insert get a little scuffed up because it's a pretty rough looking watch and it will show its wear and tell a story. However, I do have to admit it is a slightly lesser material, so I think the steel dive wins here. Next up is the lume on the bezel. So the Retangula features a lume pip, which again is lovely and flush with the bezel. However, this can't compete with the fully lumed bezel of the San Martin. Now, some people might not like the look of a fully lumed bezel, especially as the bezel is a different color lume to the handset and indices. I must say, I love the color difference. It makes the bezel stand out and you're not going to end up confusing the two. And I think it just adds a bit of fun to an otherwise very serious and militaristic looking watch. The last thing I want to mention is the bezels feature a little bit of wobble. Weirdly enough, the more expensive Retangula has a far more noticeable bezel bounce than the steel dive here. Both of them are very minute and both of them have a very nice and tactile 120 click unidirectional bezel action, but it is something to notice that paying more does not necessarily give you a better finishing. So all in all, I hope that's a nice round out. It's a bit of a weird one, but hopefully it's helpful if you were thinking of spending the extra 40 to get a more expensive Captain Willard homage. I think the main thing here is definitely just the handset, but if that's something that's not going to bother you, then definitely I would fully recommend picking up the steel dive. Okay guys, that does it for this episode. Like I said, if you want a chance of winning this one, please like this video, leave a comment down in the comment section below, be a subscriber, and go follow me on Instagram. I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well. This video seems a bit all over the place, but I really did just want it to get it out because I do want to give this watch to you guys. I promised, and it's taken far too long, so I'm just gonna get the video out and so that one of you guys can pick this up. Okay, that does it for this episode, guys. Thank you again for watching, and thank you everyone for liking and subscribing. It really does mean a lot, and hopefully I will get another video out in far less time than it's taken me to make this one. But that does it, guys. Anyway, stay awesome, stay safe, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Bye.